But for now, we've got a theist call out of Illinois. So, John, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I would like to express the understanding of why I believe that there is a virtuous act in believing in a supernatural power.
Excellent. Thank you.
And my point is that we know that there's universal laws. And like you all said, we are all connected in a way where it's a universal connection. Everything in the universe, it has its place and purpose and special design.
How do
Now,
we know
we
that?
have a visible world and we have an invisible world that's in operation. We use logic in the visible world, but in the realm of the unseen and force and power, see, you use a different tool. And that tool is intuition.
Okay. Well, I hear you, John. I don't mean to interrupt. I want to give you a chance to sort of walk us through your idea, but you've already given me, I think I counted 3, maybe 4 premises that I would maybe struggle to believe. So before we just keep listing those out, can you tell me about how you know there is a universal law, or how you know that there is an invisible world, or how you know that your intuition can reveal an invisible world? Really, anywhere you want to start with any of that, just so that I can follow along this ride with you, since those are not concepts that I feel as if I understand, because I can't say that I agree.
And John, before you answer, and I'm going to piggyback right on what Christy said, we get a lot of what people believes. It's the why that we really need. The why is the most important part. So start with one of those that Christy said, and tell and explain the why so that we can be there with you. Okay?
Okay, so I'm huge on science. And in science, as we study and observe, there's an order that is in place where things thrive and things generate in a way where it's living. So there's a formula that's in science, and it goes deep into the science, into the quantum science, as in the physical science. It's all alike. But the universal code is the same. It's invisible. It's an order. Now, in order for that order to be in existence and do what it do, something put it there. Now,
we can get to that part, the part where you say that a God must have created this order, as soon as you can evidence for me that there is an order. Because I'm hearing that things happen. Things happen for a reason, though, because that feels like a step further. Like, how do I know that there's an invisible code, that there's a matrix program guiding all of this?
Okay, for one example to a billion examples, God made, or something made, an eyeball to see. And everything about that eyeball and its components is designed to aid you into a visual picture. So now that is a perfect design, perfectly put in a
How is it perfect, though? Because I can't see X-rays, and I can't even see as well as most other people, and I can't see in the dark. I don't know that this eyeball is perfect or that it was designed by God. My eyeball came from my mother, and she gave that to me using the blueprints in her DNA, which she got from her parents and her family, and they had eyeballs. And we can go back further and further and further until we see things that are like eyeballs, but that aren't nearly as powerful as the human eyeballs that we have now. And we can also recognize that other species had those proto-eyeballs that evolved into these remarkable hawk eyes that can see things at much greater magnification. Like, I feel like you're kind of stacking all of these ideas on top of each other without examining the individual ideas. I have no reason to believe that my eyeball was designed so much as just evolved in order to get to the way it is now.
Okay, sir. You're talking about the degree in which you're designed to see out of your eye. I mean, there's different variations.
I would like to complain to the designer. I would like to be able to see without my glasses. I'd like to not drop things in the shower.
That's a fair complaint. But what I'm talking about is that the formula is so perfectly put in your million components in your eyeballs to see a picture. Now, I'm talking about that basic, like you say, everybody or everything has eyeballs to see in different environments. This is your environment. You don't need to see X-ray when you're a human. See, animals don't need to see.
I mean, my best friend doesn't need to be able to see the color red. By that logic, he's colorblind and he functions.
No,
How
but
come I get the
components
benefit of being able to see
make
red
up a eye.
and he doesn't, and a hawk gets to see forever away? How is any of this evidence of quote unquote perfection? I'm grateful for my eyes. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy to have them, and I work to feel that gratitude rather than anxiety about the imperfections of it all. But I am not about to give thanks to a perfect God for giving me perfect eyes when I can't see the way I want to be able to see.
So, sir, it's not about the degree of seeing. It's about the formula in which that is comprised of, along with trillions of other formulas just like that. Everything is formulated to be in its greatest state.
What is a greatest state? First of all, what's this formula? Do you have it? Is it written down somewhere?
No, it's actually in us.
Are you talking about DNA?
It's in our DNA.
Oh, so it's not our DNA, it's in our DNA.
Like it's in us to see, sir, what I mean by the outer world and the inner world, the inner world sees inside. This is why you can close your eyes and see. This is why you still see light when you close your eyes, because that world is real too.
So you're telling me that when I close my eyes, I'm going to go ahead and mute you because you're talking over and there's a delay and it's not your fault, and so on and so forth. Look, so when I close my eyes, and I'm closing my eyes right now, and I see the lights that are over here, you're telling me that that's not because the skin on my eyelids isn't thick enough to block all light. It's because there's an inner world that exists that I can that I'm actually seeing. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying when you close, you can be in pitch black dark and close your eyes and remember something, and you can remember the colors. You can remember everything picture perfect, just like a dream.
I don't think I can see picture perfect. I'm going to go ahead and mute you again because I don't think that when I am seeing thing, it is picture perfect in my imagination and my dreams. In fact, when I have dreams, my dreams are fuzzy as anything. Like I know I'm in my elementary school and I know that I'm wearing a bath towel and I know that it's about to fall down, but it looks like the mall.
Yeah, and my dog is here, but for some reason he's also my father, who was also my boss, and I just roll with it.
Yeah, so I don't have that experience. I'm kind of jealous. It sounds like you have the ability, John from Illinois, to lucidly dream. I've always wanted that power, but that isn't evidence that there's a supernatural realm, an invisible world. That's just that my brain has an unconscious or a secondary feature that I don't use when I'm awake. I use it when I'm asleep, where it's doing whatever brains do when they're asleep. That's a big difference.
John's world's going to get really rocked once he starts to study and understand non-dualism and recognizes that this, quote, inner world is actually the only world. Like our consciousness is the only way that we can experience anything. So our eyes, our thoughts, these images with our eyes closed or open are really just appearances in consciousness. What do you do with any of this, and how does any of it prove that there's a God? John, I guess kind of the last word from me is just to point out that we are pattern seekers. It helped us as a species to recognize that trees that look like this are likely to have this fruit on them. we have spent our entire evolutionary history trying to recognize these types of patterns. And when we are faced with enough static, with enough noise, we tend to imagine that there are patterns here. I don't see any unwritten rules or source code that are governing all of the physics and all of the nature of the entire universe. I just see that there are certain ways that certain systems operate, and that's fascinating. I want to try and understand those systems. I don't see any God there.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay, so now, what if, just like you say, this operation that you see in how the world and nature and everything is coming together. Now, what if that same operation that was coming together for the world, what if that operation is in your likeness also? That there's something that put you in a state where you can actually reach to live your fullest potential. Because a tree, it lives its fullest potential. A hawk, it lives its fullest potential.
What about the hawk that gets injured and breaks its wing? What about the tree that isn't watered properly? Like it's living its fullest potential in some sort of like dharmic sense of the word, but it's not actually becoming the most that tree seedling could have become had it been properly watered and gotten the right nutrition and fertilizer and all this kind of stuff. This fullest potential comment is based on what?
It's like Dianetics. Should I join the Scientologists so I can reach my fullest potential by purging thetans? Like, what does fullest potential even mean? For example, wait, John, I got an example. Okay. I could, for my fullest potential to be a host here on the show, I could study apologetics and
quit your day job, just read nothing but atheist texts.
Just this stuff. I could read, Daniel, William Lane Craig and other people, and I could become J. Mike, right? I could grow a beard. I could do. I
really do feel like J. Mike might be my fullest potential. I haven't achieved it yet, but I'm working towards it.
Okay, and John, that's a joke, but it's also true. I could quit my life, and I could just focus on being the best possible host, my fullest potential. Or I could do what many people want me to do in the comment section, and I could go do something else. I could go paint, and I could just paint and reach my fullest creative potential in painting, sculpture, drawing, interpretive dance, perhaps even. I could forget all that. I could become a dog trainer. I could go to the gym and reach my fullest potential by becoming as swole as humanly possible, right? What the heck does fullest potential mean? Tell me, John.
Exactly what you just said. Now, check this out. Fullest potential is when you immerse yourself in the moment and you actually produce the best result in the moment. So whatever you're doing, you're operating in optimal state of mind.
Yeah, you're saying best, you're saying optimal, you're saying good, you're saying full, you're saying all of these adjectives and superlatives, but what actually is that? What is anybody's dharma? What is anybody's best case scenario? And how do we measure it and decide it? And I love my life and I love my career, but I could have definitely taken some other paths. And who knows, maybe that guy would be happier. Maybe somewhere out in the multiverse, there's a version of Spider-Man who's me. That could be incredible. But I don't understand what this, quote, fullest potential is, how we can measure it or understand it. I feel like as a person-centered... Yeah, I'm going to let you respond to all of this, but I guess I will just say that I have been trained in a school of thought that people are experts on themselves, that they can be trusted to work towards their own self-actualization, and when they are given the necessary resources and insights, that they will naturally grow in their best possible direction. And none of that has anything to do with the universal laws of the universe or any of these concepts that feel really squishy when you throw them at us.
Invisible world, yeah. Yeah. What is thy response, John?
Now, what you just said is perfectly worded to actually actualize into your higher self. Now, that same application you put down on the flesh to, like you say, work on your flesh, you have a conscience too. And if you understand that your conscience can be shaped in a way where it's in a higher state, then now you're living in your ultimo, because everybody...
Higher and ultimo are just more superlatives, John.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to nail you down to this,
okay,
but
I'm sorry. Let me say
I
this.
think we all know
Okay,
how
let
to
me
get
say
into
this.
a higher state, John. But what do you mean by a higher state? What do you mean by it?
Okay, so now anything that you do, your higher state get involved in it, and you become one with it, and that oneness now allow you to feel and be the moment. Therefore, mastering whatever you're in the moment.
I feel like I'm reading the back of like a box of like herbal tea.
Yeah.
Or tampons, or, this candle will help you seize the day.
Yeah.
Why do you say that, sir?
John, I can tell you why.
You don't think that's true?
No, because these are platitudes. So Christy
Not stopping cliches.
Yeah, it's cliche. John, you're fuzzy. You're really fuzzy. Not just the sound of your call, but like the words and sentiments that you're expressing. The resolution on your worldview is very blurry. You're talking about invisible worlds. You're talking about higher selves. You're talking about formulae and things like that, but you're not getting into any specifics. To live a life, one has to have enough specifics to navigate it. I can't just use Snapple cap philosophy to get through and to feel meaning. Maybe you can. I need a little more than that, and maybe we're asking too much of you, but I don't think so. I think that if you could get into more specific examples to really tie it down, because nothing you've said makes me believe in a supernatural God. Nothing. And I'm really trying with you. This is Talk Heathen. We're nice here, okay? So try again. Go ahead.
Try one more time.
Yes.
Okay, so now there's a universal law called balance, and this is set in place so that there is a balance and things flow. So everything has a balance to it that exists.
What are some of the things that are in balance? I have to stop you. What are some things that are balanced, and what are they balanced with?
Have you ever heard the law of polarity? So there's a cold. If it's a hot, there must be a cold. If it's, up, there got to be a down. So the law of balance says if there's a masculine, there got to be a feminine. See, so there's a right and a left. So there's a balance. This is why you stand on 2 feet. You balancing with your 2 feet. See? So it's a balance in everything. It's a negative charge and it's a positive charge. So now something created us to be in balance. You can look at the body in itself, and it regulates itself. The ears, it keeps the ears, the eye, everything is balanced. When our water or our blood is getting too out of whack, the body regulates it. So balance is just a universal law. So now when you have a conscious and you have mental and you have feelings, now what do you can't, it's invisible. So I have to ingest the invisible with the invisible. So if that's the case, something created it with a universal purpose to regulate itself. So then I study the invisible world just like I got to study the physical world. I study the physical body. I study what I got to do in order to generate a positive charge.
What does your studying look like, John? What does studying look like for you? What do you do?
As far as what?
Well, you said you have to study these things.
I study everything.
What does studying look like? Where do you go? What do you do? Do you sit down at a desk or a table?
I do it all. I study when I read and I'm focused and I'm learning information.
Right.
I study when I'm out in nature.
Right. What are you reading? What are some things that you're reading while you're studying? I'm curious.
I read science. I read self-help. I read psychology. I read astrology. You know, I read I read things that only help me and propel me into getting into the next moment with a positive charge.
What book are you reading right now?
The way of the spirit, the spiritual man.
The Way of the Spirit, the Spirits of Man?
Yes, sir.
What's the name of the author?
I'm not sure right now. I had a book.
Do you have the book right next to you, or is it in the other room?
No, I'm actually in the car right now at the job.
Okay, just making a private call. Well, I would like it if you put in the comments the name of the book and the name of the author. I'm curious as to the studying that you're doing. I'd like to glance through that book.
My study is universal. I don't leave nothing out.
You know,
and this is what I'm saying.
John,
yes, sir.
That's aspirational at best. But, you know, to get good at something, you have to do very specific things that are not universal. Like, for example, to get into good physical shape, you need to eat well. You need to probably work on your flexibility, your cardiovascular health. You need to lift weights, perhaps, or perhaps you have different abilities that your body will allow you and not allow you to do. Nevertheless, you're working on specific things: reps, weights, range of motion. You're counting your macros. You're doing all these things that a person does. You don't just, I do it all. No, you do specific things and you list them off and you're always juggling them. So when I ask you how you study, you do it all. You don't. That's a fib. You can't do it all. There's so many hours in the day, John. You're doing specific things, and I'm trying to get what those specific things are so I can get a better understanding of where you're coming from. And I think that you're so focused on the comprehensiveness of what you're doing that you're walking us through this flowery field, and we're not even identifying the plants or the animals, and we don't know what the weather's like. I'm just here. We're here in nature. No, you're amongst trees or grass, butterflies or insects of some kind, right? Do you follow me, John?
Yes, sir.
Great. So a little more detail. So you're reading that book, and it's in there. Is the author Archimandrite Aemilanos of Simonopetra, by any chance?
I almost feel like the crew just made that up to make you read that. Yeah.
Is that the name of the author?
No, sir.
Who? Okay, well,
Wait a minute. Let me see. Go ahead, sir.
When
I say I read it all, and all I'm saying is this, that I'm open to whatever moment I am in for obtaining universal knowledge so that I can keep my physical body in balance, in yin-yang, kind of like polar balance, where I'm understanding what's going on. That's being self-aware. This is what the great philosopher said. You have to know yourself in order to begin to start the journey. And knowing yourself knows it has a conscience that must be regulated, just like your physical must be regulated. See?
I still don't understand.
I do not see
how any of this leads to belief in a supernatural God.
Yeah, I'll just maybe encourage you, John. We've been at this for nearly a half hour, and I'd really encourage you to go back and listen to your own arguments. I mean, you don't have to type it out. If you really do have an interest in becoming like a formal professional debater or something, there could be some value in really studying your apologetics here. But just to say, you have walked us through so many vague and nebulous concepts that after almost 30 minutes of questioning you about it, I don't feel like I understand anything more about your worldview than when we very first started. In fact, I think I maybe understand it less as we get into the invisible world of these universal laws. And I am not saying that there isn't something there. I am going to say that you have not presented it in a way that anybody outside of your own mind is going to really find it intelligible or credible. So let me ask you to sharpen your A game a little bit, to work through some of these ideas and to come up with some more specifics that feel less like these thought-stopping cliches, less like these platitudes of balance and universality, and something that we can actually like really hold on to.
Yeah. Like for example, like what would be an example there? Because I'm real, like I'm not real good at this. I really like the opportunity for my religion or the way I view things be challenged. So I just appreciate you guys challenging my point of view. And I really appreciate like you all intelligence. I mean, it's brilliant how you look at the world and how you can actually pave your own path. I think it's a brilliant way to exist. So I don't knock any of what you're doing, because to be able to walk and pave your own path and still be in a sense of good standing is a hooray.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I know I said I'd already given my last word, but I think to kind of build on what Johnny was working up to a moment ago, I have, in a certain philosophical sense, like paved my own path. I am, in fact, unique among the 8 billion people on this planet, and nobody has lived exactly where I've lived or done exactly the things that I've done. But my philosophy, my scientific understanding, my rational conceptualization of the world and the universe that I exist in is built on the backs of culture, of science, of academic study. You can't just universally take in all of the everything and then pave your own path. You work to understand the world by looking at what other people have done to research, to investigate, to come to conclusions, to form narratives, to draw up theories, and you build your path, your unique path, based on that information that you absorb. So let me maybe encourage you to be less of a universalist and to dive into some like specific texts and ideas.
Yeah, and to go along with what Christy just said, you sounds like you're really good in trying to take as much information, as much of the universe in. I want you to think about how you rule things out as reliable, as useful, as true. How do you do it? Do you have a method that you employ that you can explain that makes sense? And that might be a helpful way of starting, because it's important to rule out false things. It's important to rule out less than useful or not counterintuitive, but counterfactual things. Right? Because there's a whole lot of information that's wrong out there. But if you just accept it all as true and universal, you'll never get anywhere, right? If I'm trying to sell you a car and you come into the car dealership and you say, I'd like to see some cars. I have this car, this 2003 Venza. I want to sell you. And do you have any questions about it? And then you say, well, tell me about something specific. Tell me about the mileage. And I say, but there's the universal concepts, and there's an invisible world that you're going to be navigating while you're navigating the visible world. And when you close your eyes, you can see with the brightest colors that you see when you're awake. And there's laws, and the animals, they all go along, and they all have the same. It's in the DNA. It's not the DNA, and all this stuff. And you're like,
There are nice cars, and this car provides balance to those nice cars.
I have answered none of your questions about the fuel efficiency of that Venza, for example. So that's what I'm talking about. Work on that.
So let's just so I can have just a more understanding of the example. You say try and connect your inside world with examples on the outside world. Is that what you were advising?
I don't even know what the inside world means for you.
Oh, okay.
You haven't explained that in any way. I have thoughts and memories and dreams and aspirations and fears, hatreds and things like that. Is that my inside world? Or do you actually believe that my thoughts and feelings have their own existence?
Some sort of null space that can only be described by abstract mathematics that exists inside of the... Yeah, it gets really, really out there. If you are interested in more study, if you are interested in some place specifically, I might investigate Sam Harris's writings on non-dualism and working out the connection between that, quote, inside world, outside world, invisible, visible piece of things. But in any case, I hope that this has been at least somewhat helpful, and I really do appreciate you walking us through some of your understandings for the underpinning of the universe.
Hey, well, I really appreciate you all listening and giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. And like you all noticed, I don't have it all together.
No one does.
But I'm trying, and I'm doing my best to, make it in this world that we live in. So I just appreciate you, and definitely I will take your advice and try and be more practical with my journey. So I appreciate you all a lot.
Hey, well, take good care. Remember that these questions are again, aspirations, not destinations. You're never going to get it all figured out and come to a complete unified theory of everything, but we do appreciate the pursuit. So thank you so much for calling. And give us a try back in the future.